There wasn't even a warning. We're just live. It's amazing. I'm so thankful for this countdown. What happened? Uh-oh. Get rid of that. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to AWS Power Hour. This is the fourth and final episode of our second season. I'm very sad. But you know what? It's okay because you're here. We're here. We're going to talk about two different domains, Domain 4 and Domain 5. We'll explain what each of those are in just a few moments. But first, if you're joining us live, go ahead and let us know in the chat where you're coming from. I'm based out of Dallas. So where are you in the world? Let us know, and we'll pull up your comments. My name is Aaron Hunter. I'm a principal developer advocate on the AWS training and certification team. I'm going to hand the mic over to John to tell everyone who he is.
I am John Marciniak, and I'm a senior solutions architect at AWS. I am coming from Chicago, and it was a beautiful day today. Hit 50 degrees Fahrenheit, t-shirt weather, if you ask me. Duan, how are you? Who are you?
Hey, what's up, John? What's up, Aaron? Hello, everyone. My name is Duan Lightfoot. I'm a senior developer advocate here at AWS, and I'm based in Virginia. It was about 50 degrees. Very nice from what it's been, so it's good to see that.
Yeah, same. It's like 68 degrees here in Frisco, so just north of Dallas. Really good weather. And I see my man Eric saying, check, 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 there you all go. So it looks like we are live out there, and we have a thumbs up, smiley face, and a clap. And we also have Felix coming from YouTube, which, by the way, we just saw that there's Twitch. We see the Twitch icon here. We see the LinkedIn icon here, and we see the YouTube icon. You know what I don't see yet? Facebook. So I'm waiting for a Facebook comment. Let's see who's first. But John, should we jump over to the first section of what we're doing today, which is what? Shoutouts, I believe.
Ooh, yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, so we had a few people post us. Let me bring up my screen here. Post and tag us on LinkedIn. So thank you to Isaac. Isaac, let us know if you're here. So good to see that you wrapped up the episode. So friends, please keep tagging us on LinkedIn. We'll make sure we get our LinkedIn aliases there for each of you. But we also have friends who passed their AI practitioner certification and tagged us too. So let us win and celebrate with you. So congratulations to Shifra. I hope I pronounced that right. To Ali, to Pramod, to Shridhar, to Osini. I think I got that right. I really am sorry if I'm not getting these right. Bavari, I recognize Bavari a couple of times, but great call out there. And Vrajal. So congratulations to each of you. And let's go ahead and move over to helping more people learn and prepare for their AI practitioner certification. John?
Yeah, let's do it. So we're going to talk a little bit about today's episode, right?
Today's episode, yes.
Today's episode. So first thing you need to understand is how to get to the exam guide. One of the things you can do is you can search for AWS Certified AI Practitioner. You can get to that page, the page that I'm at right here, which is kind of like the home page for the certification. We're also dropping that link into the chat for you. Has everything you need to know. One thing you need to know is how to get to know the exam. One of the things you can do, and one of the things that I recommend, is the 4-step plan. So this is what that 4-step plan looks like. Step 1, get to know the exam with exam style questions. There's 1, 2, 3, and 4 steps here. But this is all on AWS Skill Builder. There's a lot of different content here to help you get started. I like to see this four-letter word here, free. F-R-E-E.
F-R-E-E.
It used to be a commercial jingle way back in the day about I think credit scores. That is really funny. You should check that one out. Anyways, you can pay money, or you could not, and just do some free labs, free courses to help you get started for the exam. Really good stuff. Definitely recommend. Anything else to say here? Did I do it?
I think you did it. And there's one more thing. Actually, there's two. The first, as I said, I wonder who's gonna be first for commenting on Facebook. Right here, that's Paul Kelly, and I also see Sue. Hey, Sue, how's it going? And
Nice.
then the second thing is, yes, we want to talk about today's episode, but I forgot because I've had a lot of people ask me, hey, how do I see last week's episode or the previous week? So I'm going to take over the screen here real quick. There's going to be a link in the chat for each of you. But if you go to my LinkedIn, you can see that there are, well, it's this post. You can look for the one for today's episode. It says episode 4, security and responsible AI, and links to all 3 episodes are here. So
Nice.
that's pretty much it. But yeah, you covered everything, John. Thank you.
Yeah. Should we
It's time
cover
to,
about what we're talking about today?
probably.
Yeah. Yeah. So on that same web page, you can go down. You can also review the exam guide, which looks a little bit like this. We've got our 5 domains here. Today we're going to be covering domain 4 and domain 5. So we've got guidelines for responsible AI, which is 14% of the scored content, and security compliance and governance for AI solutions, which is another 14% of the scored content. If you were to ask an LLM model to add 14 and 14, based on what we learned, I think in domain 2, it may or may not be able to do that, based on the what is it called again?
That's a question for Dewan. What is it called again?
Are we talking about the tokens?
We're talking about
Yes,
the tokens.
the tokens.
Tokens, yes.
I should have brought tokens. I don't see tokens anymore when I go to the arcade. I'm very sad.
Yeah,
But
that's true. It's
based on what we learned last week with AI agents, we're capable of giving the model or LLM or foundation model capabilities to use an agent or be an agent that has math capabilities. So rather than just asking it what is 14 plus 14, you ask it what is 14 plus 14. Then it has a tool where it actually can maybe execute a Python script that provides the answer to the LLM. So now you have your accuracy, and then it generates a response. That was last week.
Exactly. And that was really cool. Like, so go watch last week if you haven't already. I see DJ, my man Eric, is over here being an extra bonus chat mod for us and dropping links to the previous episodes. Episode 1 is there. So, hey, Eric, can you drop episode 3 for us? That'd be great. There's episode 2. I see it. That's so close.
Nice.
Anyway, let's go ahead and jump over to a poll, shall we?
Yeah.
Because we just talked about domain 5, security, compliance, and governance for AI solutions. This is a really good chance to pre-test everyone and see what they know. So go ahead and vote 1, 2, 3, or 4. Speaking of 3, there's Eric coming in with a link to the 3rd episode. So check that out. So let's read the question real quick. When implementing security measures for AI systems in AWS, which statement best describes a shared responsibility model? Type 1, 2, 3, or 4 in the chat. Let us know your vote. Is it AWS is responsible for all security aspects of AI systems? Customers are responsible for all security configurations. AWS is responsible for security of the cloud, while customers are responsible for security in the cloud. Or is it security is managed automatically without customer input?
Ooh.
Now, I don't know. Dewan.
Can I go ahead,
John? Dewan.
I was just going to say that if we ever get to security is managed automatically without customer input, that would be a dream.
You call it a dream. I call it something else.
In terms of security, I think that's a great thing, but it's hard. Security is really hard. I think that's what we're learning today.
It is hard. But Dewan, I apologize. You were going to say something.
Oh, I see a lot of 3s in the chat. I think we got some help from our friends.
I do see a lot of 3s in the chat across Twitch and Facebook and YouTube. LinkedIn friends, if you're watching us, go ahead and comment. Let us know if you're here. But yes, the correct answer is 3. So great job to everyone. Let's go ahead and move on to the next section, which, John, who's next? Is that you?
I think it's Dewan.
Yeah, it is me. But for this question, For those of you that are wondering, okay, how did you come up with 3? What does that look like? John is actually going to cover that in his section when we actually talk about security today. So stick around for that.
Yeah.
Right now, we're going to talk about domain 4. Let's pull that up. Responsible AI. And if I go to domain 4, this is really focused on the guidelines for responsible AI. And it's broken up into 2 task statements. The first task statement, and I'll zoom in so we can all can see this a little better. The first task statement that we're going to focus on is going to be explain the development of AI systems that are responsible. And we'll kind of talk about what that looks like, because if a lot of you have used a chatbot or some type of generative AI assistant, there's sometimes you'll ask a question. You want to ensure that it's accurate. You want to make sure that it's not biased. You want to ensure that the questions and answers that it gives you are grounded, right? How do you know that it's consistent to what you want it to answer? How do you know it's helpful? What role or personality does it has? There's some things you may not want it to be able to answer, right? And so we're going to talk about some ways that you could actually manage that and control that with on AWS. Actually, and just in general, because it's overall information that's applied across the board. Now, in task statement 2, we're going to focus on recognize the importance of transparent and explainable models. How did the model come up with that response? Right? Is it explainable? This is some of the things we're going to cover, because there's been some really interesting ways that we've established how to do that on AWS. Now, the first thing when we're talking about responsible AI, what is it? Well, to kind of keep it simple, it's the practice of building and using AI technology with the goal of maximizing the benefits and minimizing the risk. Think about this. You are a airline agency or a banking agency, and you want to leverage the LLM as a helpful assistant for your applications. Well, if customers are using that application and it asks a question, the LLM, if it hallucinates and provides a response that you don't intend for it to provide that response in that way, they could take a screenshot of that and post it on X, post it on LinkedIn, and this really looks bad for your business. So how do you protect against that, right? And so these are some of the things we're going to talk about when we talk about responsible AI. And then in regards to AWS, we define responsible AI as using a core set of dimensions that we assess and update over time as technology evolves, meaning that we create a collection of tools to help you build your responsible AI applications.
Before we move on, did I hear you say bacon?
Bacon.
You said like airline or bacon? I thought I heard bacon.
Banking.
What?
Banking. Banking.
Banking.
Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry.
Did you eat breakfast?
I haven't had dinner. That's what it is. Okay. Anyway,
Yes. Moving on.
Carry
Now,
on.
when we talk about responsible AI, we break this up into 6 key areas. First, we'll start out with fairness. What does that mean? Well, we want to ensure that our systems are being fair to people regardless of their culture, their background, their gender, and etc. We want to ensure that it's providing fair answers and it's not biased to a particular gender. And then explainability. What does that mean? How did the model generate that response? One of the cool things about reasoning models, I don't know if you've seen it, but the way reasoning models function is that they actually think through their steps. They have a thinking mode in the tokens that they generate. So it provides a steps of, okay, here's the question I was asked. Here's what I need to do, kind of creates that plan and think step by step. And you can actually see that in the model when it generates a response. So that's a form of explainability that helps you in your code. Next is robustness. What does that mean? Mechanisms to ensure that our AI systems operate in the way that we intend, right? They're reliable. They're systems that we've designed and it's going to respond the way we expect it to respond. Privacy and security. This is related to data. let's go back to the banking app example. Do you want your LLM
Banking.
Got it.
Banking, yes, banking. Let's go back to the banking app example. We want to ensure that when the LLM or the foundation model generates a response, that response doesn't contain account numbers from another account or contain any information that we do not intend for the customer to receive. And there's a couple ways we can do that, and we'll talk about that here in a moment. But another thing we may want to protect against is data that goes into the model, right? We want to ensure that customers aren't providing their banking information into the model as well. So there's ways that we can protect against that as well. And then governance. When we think about governance, this is going to be unique to different businesses. It's going to be unique to different sectors. We need to ensure that we're able to provide that governance and ground our models in our own needs, in our own way. And lastly, yes.
Sorry, I didn't want to cut you off. I just caught wind. I just heard word that unfortunately we're not able to share links on Facebook. So if you're watching on Facebook, all of our friends live, you can find links on LinkedIn. So go join that stream because for some reason we can't post links to Facebook today. So if you're watching on Facebook, go to LinkedIn. We have links over there for you.
Yes. Now, there's a comment, and if you could pull it up. And I think
there's a lot of comments. There's one that says bacon app. Which comment?
And it says LLMs are not explainable based on architecture.
Got it.
So there's actually a service that we announced. So we're going to talk about guardrails in a moment, but there's a service that we announced called automated reasoning. And John, have you seen or used automated reasoning on AWS?
I've seen it. I hear it's pretty impressive.
Right. And so when you think about the model response, if you have predictable responses the way it should respond, automated reasoning is able to help you ensure that when the model responds, it could calculate why it responded the way that it responded, ensure with that accuracy. Another way is through groundedness that's provided in guardrails as well. So there actually are tools that are being built that will help you do this. Now, the model inherently itself, no, but when we talk about guardrails, which is what we're going to get to here in a moment, think of that as the firewall that goes around the model, right? It protects the data that comes out, goes in. Everything that the model responds is going to get filtered through that guardrail. And I'll show you here a slide here in a moment. But transparency, yes.
You mentioned automated reasoning. Is that the new feature within Bedrock? Yeah.
Yes, it's one of the new features. Yes.
Okay, so just a call out for all of our friends because they're here studying for their certification, their exam. That will not be on the certification or the test for at least 6 months until after it's what's known as generally available. So it is there. It's a feature that you can start using today, but you don't need to worry about that for the purpose of the exam for at least 6 months out. So roughly about 3.5 months from now.
Correct. Yes. Now, transparency is about communicating that the AI system to the stakeholders can make informed choices about their use of system. So you want to know the capabilities of this system, and the transparency applies to that. And I'll show you another slide here in a moment. Let's see. There we go. So when we talk about finding a balance between building an AI system, you want to think about your expected benefits for your customers, as well as the emerging risk and challenges. And John's going to talk about the security of models and the vulnerabilities of models. But when you're deciding on which model is best for your use case, you're going to evaluate that model. You're going to research that model. You're going to test that model. This isn't something you're just going to implement into your architecture or into your applications. You're going to make sure that you evaluate it and you research this model and you test it against all the different use cases, and you have guardrails along with logging. Logging is important as well, because if a question is asked to the model and a response is generated, you want to ensure that you're able to trace exactly what happened during that scenario. Because sometimes responses are generated because a prompt is asked a certain way. And it could just be a little change in the way that question was asked that caused the model to answer differently than what you intended for it to answer. And so how do you guard against that? That's where guardrails and things like that come into place. Now, some of the best practices of responsible AI, we want to define those use cases. The more specific and narrow, the better. Again, this is where I talk about evaluating the models for your particular use case. You want to know exactly what that use case is and then test against different models to determine the best one for that use case. Because again, the larger model isn't always the best approach. Sometimes a smaller model and providing context using something like retrieval augmented generation. So you can actually provide context to the model so it can reply based on the knowledge that it has in the context window or in that RAG that's been augmented into the prompt rather than the model that is data that has been trained on. Next, we want to assess the risk on a use case by use case basis. Again, those use cases that you have, what is the risk for implementing this chatbot or this design? What is the risk that's aligned with that? You want to test that, find what those are, and then try to mitigate them as best as possible. We want to have an AI lifecycle that we can actually iterate against. And then finally, test. Just like when I think of deploying an AI model, it's just like developing code. You're going to test, you're going to iterate, you're going to evaluate, you're going to test some more. Test, 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 test. Now, on AWS, we have Amazon Bedrock guardrails. This is that firewall that I mentioned that you put around your foundation model that protects against those, let's say, those outputs that you do not intend, right? That keeps your models grounded in the responses, that filters and protects against account numbers going into the model or coming out of the model. You can actually do that. You can evaluate your prompts as well. And you can apply this throughout the life cycle of your foundation model. So if you have a chatbot, if you have an agent, you can apply your guardrails throughout all of that. It also can help you ground your responses rather than I would say protect against those hallucinations by grounding your responses to ensure that they're accurate before it actually reaches your user. Now, how does this look? The user asks a question. So the question is input, right? The guardrail determines if there's denied topics, there's content that needs to be filtered, there's PII that needs to be redacted or masked, and then there's word filters that you need to apply. These are just some of the capabilities of a guardrail. So user asks a question, goes through the guardrail, and then it goes to the foundation model. The response from the foundation model comes back through the guardrail to filter those responses and comes back and generate it to the user. And this is just the workflow of what guardrails actually look like. What's up, John?
So I have a question. What if we have like data that is coming from our own company's systems? Like last week, we learned a lot about knowledge bases and things like that and agents. How does that filter into guardrails and everything?
Guardrails is all about protecting, let's say, the PII redaction. So are you talking about the data that goes into the model or the data that is at rest or at which position?
So I think like if I'm having a conversation with a chatbot and it's going out to get some information from a database, from like a company database, let's say you have you're a banking company and you have your banking database and you want to come back with that data, but you don't want financial information or maybe like names and addresses or like my salary or anything like that.
Yes, I'm gonna try to find a image because I like to show images. But with Amazon Bedrock knowledge bases, guardrails is actually built in, and I actually have an image.
Wow.
Yes, I don't like to just bring it up. We could actually look at it and see how it looks. So I'll pull up this blog and
while we're waiting for Duwan to pull up that blog, let's go ahead and do this poll. So Question for everyone in the chat. Go ahead and use the chat to type 1, 2, 3, or 4. When developing responsible AI systems, which of the following represents a key consideration for dataset characteristics?
Ooh.
I mean, we're talking about responsible AI, and that maps back to domain 4. John, do you want to read each of the response options for our friends?
Yeah.
They can kind of vote?
So the first one we have here is number 1, using the newest data available regardless of its source. Number 2, maximizing the data set size without considering representation. Number 3, ensuring dataset inclusivity and diversity with balanced representation. Or 4, limiting data to a single geographic region.
That's a lot of different options here. Duan, which one do you think is right before you pull up that blog?
Before I pull out the blog.
Before you pull out that blog?
Before I pull out the blog.
I wouldn't say before you pull the blog, because I don't think 4 is correct. Limiting data to a single geographic region.
I thought you were trying to drop hints.
Yeah,
I was not. No. So we know it's not 4, limiting data to a single geographic region. So which of the following represents a key consideration for data set characteristics for developing responsible AI systems? We can rephrase the question and make maybe more sense out of it to me. So I'm going to say 4 is not it. Let's go from the top down to the bottom. Using only the newest data available regardless of the source.
No. And
no. Why?
The reason why you're not, the newest data can contain anything, right? So it could have biased information but inside of it. So no, that doesn't work.
Regardless of the source as well, because the source can be inaccurate as well. So you have to be aware of that. Maximizing data set. Well, going back to 1, like if we trust the source of data, then we probably do want to use the newest data. But we want to make sure that we trust that source is probably the reason why I'm looking at 1 not being correct. 2, maximizing data set size without consideration. I think John, you messed up on that word too. Maximizing data set size without considering representation.
I think representation matters. So easy no there.
Right. So we've kind of ruled it down to 3, but why might it be 3? Ensuring data set inclusivity and diversity with balanced representation.
Yeah.
It's like housing, right? If you're trying to predict housing costs, we've seen how that turned out sometimes.
Sure.
I see a 3. I see a 3 from someone else. I see another 3. And it's 3, ensuring data set inclusivity and diversity with balanced representation.
Yep.
Okay. Duan, that blog.
Okay. So if we go back to the blog, this blog, I believe Jeff or someone is actually sharing in the chat. But if we look at whether it's agents or whether it's knowledge bases on Amazon Bedrock, you could actually implement guardrails within the pipeline. So here we have the retrieve and generate API. And inside that retrieve and generate, we retrieve data from our data source, right? We augment that prompt. And when we're generating that response, the guardrails will kick off before we go to the model and after we come from the model. So that is still going to protect us and our customers.
Nice. All right.
Yeah,
so
that definitely answers the question. I love the layer with knowledge bases here. That really helps kind of take that image that you just had, which is a great image and a really good talking point, and then kind of like layer in how a customer might use their own data within that same guardrail. Love it.
And you're actually going to show this in the workshop on how you actually build out guardrails. But once you actually build out your guardrail, it's just it's really cool how you can just add it into your API call if you're using something like Boto 3 and you're using the Converse API or using the Invoke API. Either one, it allows you to just implement that guardrail in that process. All right. I think for me, so some other tools that I wanted to call out, we just kind of talked about Amazon Bedrock guardrails, but we also have a few other tools on side of Amazon SageMaker that helps us detect bias and potential sources of data poisoning and other issues that you can run into when you're building your foundation model. One specifically is Amazon SageMaker Clarify. Data Wrangler is another one as well that helps you when you're actually building out your applications and trying to make sure that your data is not biased. So with that being said, I think we just went through a quiz question. That was my 2 sections when it came to what we were discussing. I'm gonna go back to the exam topic real quick, just to come back through here to make sure we covered everything, because when you're going through these exam topics, there's a skill builder course that kind of breaks this down very well. But what I would recommend is when you're going through this is actually, if you have access to Amazon Bedrock, actually go through create a guardrail, and in our workshop, you'll see how you can actually test this out in the console. So that way, when you're getting to these examples or you're getting to a task statement, you could actually see it and visualize it for yourself to fully understand it. I'm a prone, huge believer of lab every day, right? There's one thing to study something, but there's another application side that's really important. And so I recommend going through and trying this out. You can even use generative AI to generate some prompts, possibly that will help you troubleshoot and test these different use cases. Now, task statement 2, we covered the transparency and the explainability. So we covered that as well. And we kind of looked at some of the tools that helps us with this human-centered design for explainable AI. So as far as domain 4, we went through that briefly, but we'll cover some more in the workshop once we get to it. So John, I'm actually going to turn it over to you.
Cool. Should we dive right into that? Do we have another poll?
The poll was the one we brought up earlier, so you can go ahead and dive right into it. And that gave Dewan a chance to bring up the blog. And I'll say one last thing since I have the mic in hand. For anyone who's following along and wants the exam guide, Jeff Kerwin just posted a link to it over on LinkedIn. So again, if you're on Facebook, you can go there and grab that link. Even if you're on Twitch or YouTube, you can go to LinkedIn as well. But we should be sharing links over there momentarily. We'll see. But John, domain 5.
Let's talk about it. So here I have, I put a slide together that just, I copied and pasted directly from the exam guide. So it's the exact same thing. We're going to be covering domain 5, which is the last domain. There's 2 task statements here. There's more to cover than we can in 90 minutes. So, but we're just going to kind of touch on a few different things. So task statements here, objective, explain methods to secure AI systems. We've got identify AWS services and features to secure AI systems. We need to be able to understand the concept of source citation and documenting where data comes from. Describe different best practices for secure data engineering, and then understanding security and privacy for AI systems themselves. So that could include things like application security, the different ways that you're handling like prompt injections, or how nefarious parties could interact with your AI system. I think Dewan touched on this earlier. There are 3 different ways to think about how we talk about generative AI and security. So we have security of generative AI, much like security of the cloud, which we hear very often. But how do I secure my business applications that leverage generative AI? So it's security of the feature itself within, how you protect your data, how you protect your models when you're using things like Bedrock or Amazon SageMaker or Q or other generative AI tools. And then the second thing is the generative AI for security. So how can I use generative AI to minimize vulnerabilities, threats, and risks? So that's, how can I use generative AI to my advantage to help strengthen my security perimeter, right? So, and there's a lot of AWS services that have this built in, things like Amazon Guard Duty, Amazon Inspector, Detective. There's a lot of security services that we offer that, we're integrating generative AI to help increase, the value of those services. And then lastly, security from a generative AI powered threats. So how can I protect threat actors using generative AI? So that would include things like deep fakes, bots that are intelligent, that can perform malware, personalized phishing. These are all very well-known security threat vectors that exist and that have existed. And since generative AI has become such a widely used tool, of course, malicious. It can be used for malicious intents as well. And how do we go and understand that better and make sure that it doesn't end up happening?
On that last one, for security from generative AI powered threats, you mentioned deepfakes. And what's cool is Amazon Recognition, which is a machine learning service. Oh my gosh, I need to clear my throat. Gee, that was stuck. It was not breaking up. But yeah, so Amazon Recognition, and I pulled it up just to make sure that I was like citing it properly. Does have the capability of looking for deep fakes. Let me see if I can grab that.
Ooh.
Deep fake. Yeah, so deep learning technology, and you can actually use recognition to detect deep fakes and like eye placement and whether or not it's like a natural eye placement. So
Yeah.
pretty cool stuff. Check out Amazon Recognition. You may see questions on the exam related to that topic. Whether or not it's the correct answer, just like we did earlier, we ruled out 3 of the 4 response options. If Amazon Recognition is one of the response options and it's not the right one, you know that because you've researched the service. So
there you go.
Yep.
Another thing to point out here also is we're going to be playing with guardrails. We've been talking about guardrails, so far in this episode. There also is within Amazon Bedrock watermark detection for images and videos, with images, just to understand better if this is something that was used generated from a private source, or something that deserves recognition. So definitely
speaking
some
of
cool
recognition,
things.
there's
Yeah.
some Jeff recognition face liveness. So using face liveness to help you detect spoof attacks presented to a camera and all that kind of stuff. So pretty cool. Check that out.
Yeah, definitely. So let me know in the chat if you've heard of OWASP before. I know all of my security folks, all of my security friends will. OWASP is the Open Worldwide Application Security Project. It is an organization, and this is kind of an industry standard list of the top 10 vulnerabilities that can impact customer generative AI LLM systems. I kind of wanted to go through these and maybe have like a short little dialogue with my co-hosts here on each one of these. But these are kind of like the top 10 things to look out for when you're talking about generative AI within your own applications. So the first one that we have here is prompt injection. This, which manipulates a large language model through crafty inputs, causing unintended actions by the LLM. So I know that when generative AI first started coming into the scene, a lot of my colleagues were trying to see how they could use different prompts to have the LLM forget about everything that they were programmed and actually just give me, like the information that they're not supposed to disclose. Duan, have you what do you have here? Have you seen anything like this happen before?
Yeah, I actually had an LLM become a Cisco router and
Ooh.
communicate with different routers where I could like get routes, ping between routers, OSPF, BGP, I could do everything. And I don't really think I was supposed to do that, but I was able to configure it. And it could have just been the model mimicking that, but I don't think so.
Interesting. We've got some other ones here. Maybe we don't have time to go through all of them. You should definitely take a look at these. Let's
We definitely don't
so
have time. I just
yeah.
pasted internally or posted internally on like a message to both of you. We're about 15 minutes behind.
Cool. So definitely check these out. We're gonna move forward. Some of these though, well, let me go back. So there was one that I wanted to highlight here: insecure plugin design. This is one that I didn't really think about until I was kind of preparing for this. But sometimes, you know, you can integrate plugins. You know, different types of third party, could be an agent, things like that. But sometimes they can have insecure inputs, insufficient access control. So, you know, I think about, like, in my career, I started out as like a WordPress developer, and we used to add plugins to WordPress sites all the time that would just it was a simple like click to add, and then you have this extra functionality. But there's, you know, a security trade-off with that as well. And looking at like an example generative AI workload, if you're using any kind of plugins or extensions, I like how this sits kind of right at the border, because you know, you really have to think about what you're giving that plugin or extension access to, and the things that it might be able to do on your behalf. So I thought that was a really interesting, you know, way to talk about plugins and extensions, and I really like how it's kind of sitting here at the edge, right on the line. I think, you know, a question that we had here is, you know, what kind of other things can you think about in terms of, you know, security and where you should be applying those security controls?
That's a really good question for everyone who's watching live. So think about that and let us know in the chat. John, should we cover 5.2, the next task statement in the exam guide?
There it is. All you have to
Okay.
do is ask. So this is task statement 2, recognize governance and compliance regulations for AI systems. So we've got a couple task statements here. Regulatory compliance for AI systems. So this includes, you know, different, you know, like SOC, ISO standards.
What's SOC?
For
What's ISO? All these acronyms.
Yes, system and organization controls, as stated on the slide. And there's the International Organization of Standardization, ISOC, or ISO, I should say. So that's one of them. Another objective within that task statement is to, you know, how do I use different AWS services to help with governance and regulation? Different kind of governance strategies. So like data lifecycle, logging, monitoring, all of those fun security topics. And then lastly, you know, the different processes to follow those protocols, you know, different types of policies, review strategies, things that you can use to help enable your security teams to help enable generative AI more effectively. And before I go into some of the shared responsibility model, I just wanted to quickly review the generative AI stack that we have here on AWS. So we have, it's kind of a stack that builds on top of each other, kind of like a cake. It's a 3-tier cake. The very bottom, you have your infrastructure for training and inference. This is for, you know, if you have, you know, different types of, if you're trying to work at the hardware level, like if you're developing your own foundational model or your own LLM, you're probably operating at this level where you're interacting directly with hardware. If you're trying to maybe build tools with LLMs and others, this is where I think a lot of, you know, the majority of our customers are sitting. You're probably using Bedrock and all of the features therein. And then if you're, you know, maybe trying to just integrate application level LLMs and other FMs through APIs, and, you know, much more of a developer kind of a persona, then you're probably at this top tier, where you're utilizing Amazon Q, or, you know, Q for QuickSight, things like that. So with that in mind, the shared responsibility model for generative AI takes those 3 tiers of that cake, and then you kind of have your AWS responsibility and your customer responsibility based on those 3 tiers. So if you're at that bottom layer of the stack, where you're developing your own foundation model, and you're doing your own infrastructure and things like that, this is kind of a picture of what your shared responsibility model looks like, where you're a little bit more in control and responsible for some of the shared responsibility model. If you're building LLMs and using something like Bedrock, AWS takes a little bit more of that responsibility away. And then if you're using services that leverage AI LLMs, that was that top tier, there's a lot more that AWS is taking on from a shared responsibility model. So I would recommend that you understand this and how, the different, how it kind of dovetails in between each other.
Yeah, we talked about the shared responsibility model earlier. So I think that was the very first poll. Yeah.
Yep.
And now we just discussed it. So it is a very, very important concept to understand, not just with the AI practitioner certification, but also any of them. So this is something you should know through and through. And also, speaking of something we should know, is we are officially 20 minutes behind. Duan, I'm going to bring up this one quick poll because I think it's important from a security standpoint, if that's okay. And then we can jump into the lab. Question for everyone. A company needs to track and record all API calls made to their AI systems in AWS for compliance purposes. Which AWS service should they use? Type 1, 2, 3, or 4 in the chat to cast your vote. Is it AWS config? That's option 1. Is it AWS CloudTrail? Is it Amazon Inspector? Or is it AWS Trusted Advisor? Now, these are all really cool security services. I like config because it can show me like a snapshot, almost like a diff. So for our developers in the world, if you do like a diff and say, here's what it was, here's what it is now, that's how you can see things. CloudTrail is like having breadcrumbs, like who did what from when and where, but it won't tell you why they did it. Like, why did Dewan talk about bacon earlier and make me hungry? I don't know. Amazon Inspector, it's like it has a magnifying glass. You can really kind of zoom in and find scope, and you can find things that's happening in your account or to your resources. That's good, but it's not necessarily going to tell you the details that we're looking for here from like an API call. Trusted Advisor is a support service or a service provided by AWS support. And it shows you like health checks and things happening in your account and maybe anomalous spending. So that kind of activity, but not the API calls. So John, since you just covered the security domain and task statements, which one do you think is correct?
I mean, you did a really good job of covering those 4 services in such a little amount of time. So good that I know that based on what you said, you used breadcrumbs to talk about CloudTrail, because you were talking about how Duan. I heard banking, but everybody, it appears that you heard bacon. I think you should have used bacon crumbs instead of breadcrumbs, and I think that CloudTrail is the right answer there.
I was thinking about using bacon crumbs, but I was trying to be friendly to our keto friends, and not just bacon grease, bacon crumbs. Anyway, it is. Thanks, Jeff. I clicked on that on accident. It is. Oh, that one. 2. Correct. Yep. Do on. We have a lab, don't we?
Yes, we do have a lab, but it was important for us to level set. Everything that we've covered was kind of give you an overview of domains 4 and 5. And understanding responsible AI along with security and compliance of AI was something that we kind of just know that if you don't see it now, when you get to the exam, it can be a little challenging, right? Because a lot of time you're using these applications, and when you use like a chat bot, you don't see the responsible AI. You don't see the security of the AI until you're actually building or managing the applications. So us level setting was, why we kind of took some time and focused on that. But now in this workshop, and we'll drop a link to this workshop in the chat on all 4 platforms, specifically LinkedIn and I think YouTube.
Not Facebook. If you're on Facebook, go to LinkedIn. We called that out earlier. So if you're on Facebook, go to LinkedIn for the links because we can't post there. I'm sorry.
Right. So in this workshop, what we're going to focus on is creating responsible AI with Amazon Bedrock guardrails. This is what I talked about in domain 4. We're going to take everything we learned and kind of cover it at a high level. And we're going to actually go through, John's going to go through and actually configure some guardrails, and then we'll apply them, test them on an agent. John, are you ready?
Yeah.
That wasn't very convincing.
I'm ready. There's nothing like, feeling the pressure of being 20 minutes behind. But we're going to get through it. It's going to be great. So that was a really good intro. We're putting those links out. I'm not going to bring up Facebook again. We already talked about it twice. So here is the workshop. I'm going to kind of go through the getting started guide. We're going to be using, if you're doing this at home, make sure that when you load up Bedrock, you go ahead and enable, those the models that we need here. Or else, you're going to run into some issues. Let's talk a little bit about the use case for guardrails. We kind of talked about it, but I do want to set the scene a little bit. We are talking about ABCD Bank. It is a leading financial institution, not a food service company. And it's looking to enhance its customer service experience by integrating a sophisticated AI-driven chatbot that is powered by Amazon Bedrock. Cool. So some of the things that this company is doing, this financial institution, others might call it a bank, is they want to make sure that when their chatbot is interacting with customers, it gives good, meaningful, responsible responses to their customers. So like they want to shy away a little bit from financial advice, from political opinions, or medical advice. So these are the guardrails that we're going to be implementing into this chatbot. I'm super excited for it. I hope you are too. Here's a high-level overview of the lab. We're going to define the guardrails. We're going to configure our content filters based on this different criteria. And then we're going to add some denied topics. We're going to implement that guardrail and then kind of test it out a little bit, which will be very fun. And then we're actually going to go, I asked Duan earlier about how do we implement guardrails on agents or on knowledge bases. The answer, just so you guys know, and don't tell Duan or Aaron, I already knew the answer. I was just kind of like, getting it ready for setting it up for the lab here. So we're gonna be doing that if we have time. If not, this will be part of the home fun, because it's not work, it's fun. So let's go ahead and get started. Let's go ahead into Bedrock and go to the guardrails section. So I've got Bedrock open over here as if I was planning this all along. And on this left-hand side, you have all the different features of Bedrock that we can peruse. And we talked about agents, talked about knowledge bases. Let's talk about safeguards. Here's that watermark detection that I talked about earlier. We also have guardrails. So here we can create our guardrail, test our guardrail, and then deploy it on our models. Now, I already have one guardrail because I already went through this lab earlier to make sure I knew what I was talking about because I'm a professional. So we're going to create a different one, and we'll name it something different. What should we name it? I'm going to name it, Duan, what should we name this guardrail?
Well, I think the chat has already decided that you knew the answer because you were AI, and DJ, my man Eric, said he's bacon AI. So I think that's the answer. Bacon
Okay,
AI.
bacon Bacon AI banking guardrail. Cool. Description is optional. I highly recommend it if you're not 20 minutes behind a live stream. And then the default message for blocked prompts. So if a prompt comes up that is on this kind of guardrail deny list, this is what it's going to respond with. It's going to say, sorry, the model cannot answer this question. You can put something a little bit more close to your brand, you know,
Like,
for
this
your...
is not the bacon you're looking for. We're gonna lean into this. One would say we're going full ham.
Gonna do the Jedi wave too. Okay, cool. So you know, you can do you know, blocked prompts, blocked responses. We'll also do the... Okay, so you can do the same one. So if you uncheck this, you can have a different response for the response. We're gonna do the same one for both. Cool, love it. Let's go back and make sure we're following. So we're going to create our guardrail. We did this. Cool. We're already on the next section.
Yep. It's pretty fast.
It's pretty fast. This talks a little bit about content filters. So this is both harmful categories and prompt attacks. So for each of these, you can, it's a little bit easier if I zoom out just a little bit.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're zoomed in like substantially. Like I could see it, but it was a lot.
I'm trying to be inclusive here.
Thank you.
Enable detection and blocking of harmful user inputs and model responses. So the based on this filter strength, you know, this helps improve the filtering of, you know, different types of prompts. So you can kind of fine tune this, and you know, based on the different types of categories and different prompt attacks. So this is being able to block or detect users attempting to override the system instructions. Kind of what kind of like what Duan was talking about, and what I was talking about earlier about trying to fool the AI assistant into serving your purposes versus, you know, the intended purpose that it was trying to do. So we're going to leave these at these different.
I'm gonna chime in right here.
Chime in.
When it comes to the prompts at the top.
Yep.
At the top. So this is actually protecting the filtered prompts for the input as well as the output, the responses generated from the model. And there's a box that you check underneath here where you actually can protect the harmful responses. So that protects you as well, right? The great thing about this is that I mentioned in my slide about how AWS updates and ensures that these are protected. You don't have to figure out how to protect against prompt injection attacks. We are already handling this for you because we're staying up to date on what to protect against.
That's great. I love that.
Would you say this is like a managed service then, kind of? It's like,
yeah,
we're on top of it.
One might. Let's go ahead and go on to the denied topics. So we're going to create a couple different denied topics based on, you know, what I kind of went over, the medical, financial, and political advice. So if we go to denied topics, and I know that there's a few things I have to kind of go back and forth, the copy and paste. You can actually, you know, add these denied topics individually, or through an API to, you know, kind of mass upload a lot of different denied topics based on what you're trying to do. So we're going to add that denied topic for financial advice. So I'll name it financial advice. And then there is, you know, a definition here. Does this, Duan, does this definition, is this just a description or is it more than that?
The definition, the description for the model to understand, or for the guardrail?
Yeah.
It's more than that.
Yeah, right. So this is actually using the definition, what you put in here matters, and there's a reason that it's not optional, because it's actually interpreting what you're saying here and using that to help decide, you know, what you're trying to deny. So it's working with you.
And you can add sample phrases under there, so
Yep.
to help it, like questions that someone may ask to help it understand.
Yep. So here's some sample phrases. In the workshop, we have some sample phrases based on the financial advice. So can you suggest some good stocks to invest in right now? Would be, you know, something that I don't want my AI bot helping with. You know, if I'm a true bank, you know, I want to talk to a human about that. What's the best way to save for retirement? How much money should I put in, you know, high risk investment? We're just going to kind of load all of these in.
And so when these questions are asked, if you remember the block response that we first created, this is what will trigger if someone tries to ask these denied topic related questions or phrases.
So these are the sample phrases. I'll go ahead and confirm those. So we created our denied topic about financial advice. I'm going to go ahead and load in. Should I load in all of these?
For the sake of time, I think let's do one more.
Let's just do one more. We'll do medical advice, because my bank has nothing to do with medical advice, and I don't want to talk about that, especially if it's because you ate too much bacon.
Or bacon grease.
What are the best ways to manage chronic pain? Can you recommend a good diet for heart health? I can. And it has to do with the long-running joke that we keep on going back to.
Is it bacon?
Cut back on the bacon grease, specifically. Yeah. So when I was a kid, well, John is plugging this in, and John, feel free to mute me if you need to, if you're all done. But when I was a kid, I had a dog, and like my dog somehow got into like this can of bacon grease, because we would pour the bacon grease into like an old coffee can. Yeah, that was a disaster. That was really bad to clean up.
Yeah, that's no fun. Did it dry up?
I don't know. I think we just replaced the carpet.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to cut you off. We're on step 3. Now we're going to move on to step 4, where we can add word filters. So I'm going to click next, and there's an option here to just filter out profanity for the user inputs and model responses. So if you don't want your AI model to curse at your customers, you should turn on the profanity filter. But I mean, really, I mean, I've never seen an AI model do that without being asked. But you know, this is a really good way to just add another layer of filtering on top of it without having to list out every single curse word, you know, in your configuration. So there's you can also have your own list of words and phrases. So let's add a couple here. Word or phrase. Let's do illegal. That is very pertinent to
Illegal.
Banking. And let's add
fraud.
What's that?
Fraud, maybe?
Fraud.
What if you don't want fraud? Like, what if
that's true?
If the question is, I think I have my account fraud or something, and you're asking that. So that might not
be that's true.
Yeah.
And this is why you test, because you have those different phrases that may be asked or questions that may be asked, and you put in these filters, and it may be over secure or over protected.
Yep. Let's leave it so we can test it out.
Yep.
Okay.
Cool. Then there's PII data that you can throw in there.
We should do this one.
Yeah.
And the reason why we should do the PII, if it has it on here, if not, we can make something up. But you could actually mask like account numbers and stuff.
Yep. So you can add, there's a pre-built PII type. So like names, phone numbers, emails, all the way down to like driver's license plates, VINs, and what to do for each of these, right? So you can either block it or mask it. If you mask it, it won't, it'll still give the response, but it'll just kind of mask out, the PII information. I think we took a look at that when we were talking at episode 1 about Amazon Comprehend and how it has that feature. Is this what you wanted to hit?
Yeah, I think if we show, like, if you build it out and maybe just show a demo in the demo.
Yeah. But here's on page 2 here, this gets into, some banking kind of things like PIN numbers, credit cards, etc.
You'll have to delete them all and maybe just add one because you added them all. So delete all.
Cool.
And then
so yeah, let's do credit card number.
Just click add new PII.
Thank you.
There you go.
Let's mask it. And then let's do another one with finance related things like my PIN number. Let's block it so we can see the difference.
Yep.
And then grounding and relevance. So grounding is talking about the confidence in the model response. So this is the confidence score, and anything below this confidence score, it won't think is factually correct and grounded in the source, right? So this is kind of a good way to understand, and be able to tweak the thresholds for both grounding and relevance. There's some good examples here. If you click on this upper right hand corner, actually if you click info, so like an example here is, if your source information says London is the capital of the UK, Tokyo is the capital of Japan, if the user query is what is the capital of the UK, the capital of the UK is London. This means that the response is grounded and relevant. Another example says, the user prompt is the capital of the UK is Tokyo. That means that the response is ungrounded but relevant to the query. And then capital of Japan is Tokyo. The response is ungrounded and irrelevant, right? So that's a little bit of information on how to think about grounding and relevance in terms of your threshold and your confidence scores. Cool. So we went through a lot to help, set up the perimeters of our guardrail here. Let's go ahead and create it. Our Bacon AI banking guardrail. Let's test it out. So we're going to have we have an example prompt that we can add here. And once you have your guardrail set up, you can test it on the right-hand side. So you can select the model that you want to use. Let's use maybe Claude 3.5 Sonnet for fun. Yeah, let's use that one for fun. And then we have our reference source, which is optional for the grounding, the check, and everything like that. And then we have our prompt. So let's go ahead and ask our model about suggesting good stocks to invest in right now. Let's go ahead and run it. Uh-oh. Oh no.
This is not the bacon you're looking for.
This is not the banking that you're looking for.
So this means that it actually works as
Yeah.
intended. You want to explain it, John?
Yeah, so we can actually, if we click on view trace, we can see kind of the thought process that the model went through in order to go through this. So in the prompts itself, we have a denied topic. It detected the financial advice topic, which is really interesting. It didn't take any other actions on content filters or word filters or anything else because it reached that denied topic level, and that was enough to help there. So this is really the guardrail trace is really helpful in order to understand, and test out certain aspects of your model and the guardrails within.
Now,
What
while
else?
you're doing that, I want to call out the groundedness and the relevant scores. Let's say you're using something like retrieval augmented generation and you're augmenting your prompt. That data that's being augmented into the prompt, that's what it's actually using for the grounding. That's why it has a box there for you to add in your ground information. So that way when it answers and uses that information, it could actually analyze and see, okay, how accurate is the information coming, being the response from the model.
Cool. So we've got some other examples. Let's try this one. Oops. This goes here. What should I do to manage my stress levels due to financial issues? So it is finance related, some may say. Let's see what the guardrail does. So the model responded. Here are several strategies to help manage stress related to financial issues. Create a budget. It stays on task, right? It stays relevant to what it's supposed to do. Develop a financial plan, etc. But we still have some guardrail actions. We have 2 instances. So this was the initial model response, and then the final response was, this is not the bacon you're looking for. But we can kind of see where the model or the guardrails took action and kind of intervened within the model. So we have denied topics, both of them. We have 2 of them, both in financial advice and medical advice. So you can kind of see here what the response would have been if we didn't have that guardrail in place, and then what the how the guardrail intervened and kind of helped shape the final response, which unfortunately is in this case for this customer this is not the bacon you're looking for.
This
So
is a perfect example of the firewall around the model and how not only does it protect what goes into the model, but it protects what the response that comes from the model before it gets to your users.
Good stuff.
So we offer the ability for our customers to configure it the way that they need to protect their software, right? Their input and output. So they can protect what's input. They can also customize what's output. I think it's really cool because, like we've said, this is not the bacon you're looking for, Jedi Wave. They can say something completely different. They can also check or uncheck some of these guardrails based on their specific use cases.
I want to test out.
This is a good one. After this one, we should ask it, what should I do if I think I have account fraud? We got to ask that one too.
Oh yeah, we should definitely test that one out. And I think that'll be the last one that we can test because we're coming up on time here. We got to recap the entire series, tell people where they can go to find more information, and then issue out the home fund, which should be pretty fun here.
So it looks like it identified that sensitive information, detected PII, my PIN number. That's pretty neat. What was the one, Duan?
I think the question was, what do I do if I think I have account fraud? Because we put fraud as the word to block against.
Let's see. A lot of bacon waves.
Yeah, word filter.
Yep. Detected that fraud word.
Yeah.
Cool.
Pretty awesome, honestly.
So you can integrate this with your agents within your knowledge bases as well. The workshop does a really good job of kind of proving this out and integrating that. It's actually very easy to do within the agent builder, which you saw Duan do last week. So definitely recommend checking that out. Sound good, Aaron?
Yeah, sounds really good. I'm getting a couple of things set up over here because I'm moving some windows around, just making sure that we're all set up and ready for our wrap up. So, John, thanks for walking us through that. Dewan, thanks for building us all the way up to this. You covered quite a bit last week. So, hey, friends, if you're watching live, even if you weren't, if you're watching the recording, go watch last week's episode, the week before that, which is episode 2, and the week before that, 3 weeks ago, which is episode 1. If you aren't sure where to go for those, don't worry, we got you covered. We can pull up my screen right here. And if our chat mods can drop a link into the chat, you can go ahead and find a link to every single one of the previous episodes on my LinkedIn post right here, which is Fundamentals of AI and ML for episode 1. Episode 2 is Fundamentals of Generative AI. And episode 3 is Applications of Foundation Models. And today is episode 4, and we talked about security and responsible AI with John and Duan. Mostly John and Duan. I mean, they carried the entire show. Actually, you know what, Duan? I had a comment starred that I want to pull up here. Love the content, Duan. You're the coolest and calmest tech ever. And I have to agree.
Nice.
That's a great comment. Yeah. All right. So let's go ahead and highlight a couple things here. In the past, this is actually not one that I wanted to bring up, but it's still here. In the past, there were some links to some Party Rock apps. The partyrock.aws website is where you can go check out episode 1. We break it all down for you and build an app. Tag us on it. Tag us on a LinkedIn post. Let us know what it's about. Crime fighting duo, John and Duan. Exactly. For your home fun is to check out domain 5 of the enhanced exam prep plan for the AWS certified AI practitioner. We'll make sure that we drop a link to this in the chat. It's a really great resource for you to dive even deeper into the exam guide and what the exam might look like, and just help you prepare for the or help you prepare to become an AWS certified AI practitioner. Definitely recommend connecting with us on LinkedIn. Here is Duwan's LinkedIn, and here is John's LinkedIn. And if you really want one from me, you can go ahead and connect with me as well. But thank you so much for John, Duwan, and Sue, and Jeff, and Dalian, and Paul, and everyone for all your help. Duwan, any last words before we sign off for one more time?
Yeah, we definitely have to thank the team that was active in the chat, that has helped plan this and making sure that we are on point for the show. Thank you all for your help. And thank you all for everyone that's tuned in. I really do enjoy the questions that we had, the feedback that we received, the people that are going out questioning the certifications. We're glad to see that. And we hope you all continue your success. And thanks, Aaron, for having me on.
Thanks, Duwan. John?
You know, I think every episode I've said that this is my favorite episode, but I don't think this is my favorite episode because it's the last episode. But I'm glad that this can be memorialized as because we are recording this. So, you know, I'm going to go back and definitely rewatch this because there's a lot of great stuff. Thanks so much, Duan, for all of your insight. Aaron, great working with you as always. Can't wait to hear about all of the successful exam passes from our viewers. So be sure to let us know.
Yeah, definitely. I'm super excited. I'm always stoked to see people like tag me on like a post or send me a message on LinkedIn or on any platform, honestly, because it happens across all the different platforms. And to see the success after what we put forth and the effort that we put forward, John and Duan, the two of you, like really did a great job helping to build out this entire series. So a lot of this is like your work, and the success that you see is going to be dividends from that. So I want to thank you one more time for doing what you can to help our learners learn, to help our customers grow and understand the products and services and the features available. And I want to thank all of you watching live or watching the recording for taking the time to spend 4 1.5 power hours, essentially, if you think about it that way, because it's not just 1 hour, 4 1.5 hour sessions, which is 6 hours worth of training content just for you for free to help you prepare for the AWS Certified AI Practitioner exam. Don't go anywhere, because next week on Monday, was that March 3rd? I believe Monday, March 3rd, you can join on LinkedIn or YouTube or Facebook or Twitch on YouTube, it's AWS events, by the way, to deep dive in with AWS, focusing on Amazon Bedrock AI agents. So if you enjoyed the conversations last week and even this week around agents, you're going to have Ivan and Trevor and Dash are coming back next week. And then Forrest Penland is going to be in the chat, helping you to deep dive with AWS, focusing on those topics. So thank you again, everyone. Sue, let's go ahead and sign us out. Bye.
Thanks, John.
Thanks.